also did the restoration and planting trees, probably one of the first people to do that in Wisconsin. It was a new idea to try to restore the land and take care of it. He really had that emotional connection of as being a caretaker of the land as opposed to an owner of the land.
And I think that's what we have felt about this property, that we're just so lucky to be here to be able to, take care of it and try to promote it back to health.
It's nice dirt.
When Susan and I were first looking at possible projects and we came out here, and the creek was in horrible shape, but we were here during the salmon run and we saw these beautiful big chum salmon working their way up this creek, and we just looked at each other and said, we have to do this.
I know, aren't these ferns amazing?
We got in contact with Jefferson Land Trust and they helped make this happen.
So it's kind of neat to think of my grandfather doing that back in the 30s, and then my dad doing it wherever he's lived, and then for us to be able to do it, and then for our kids to enjoy it so much.
And you can see the purpose of this all is that this is quite an old tree, really. You see the growth rings here. It's at least 15, 20 years old, probably 25. So by taking out a substantial percentage of the trees here, the ones that we leave should grow much faster. Hopefully this will allow the huckleberries take off with the increased levels of life.
We wanted to have a very simple little cabin, no electricity. Something we've been dreaming about for 25 years almost.
I feel so lucky in this day when there's so many bad things going on in the environment to be able to come out here and do something that's positive and it's going to have a longer term effect.
It's a relationship with the land and everything on it. You see the rhythms and the growth and the change, because everything's always changing, and here we're trying to direct that change for the better.
It's like a mirror, looking through an enchanted mirror.
What happens in your creek around here?
So salmon lays eggs in the creek. Those eggs hatch, and they get old. They swim out into the ocean. Then the salmon that swam out into the ocean came back, died, and laid other eggs.
Do they come back to this very creek?
Yep. It's home to so many animals, and I just like it a lot.
I grew up with this notion of Prince Charming who would ride up on a white stallion and sweep you off, and I'm constantly surprised that my Prince Charming rides up on a tractor every day. I always knew that Keith should be a farmer.
As a father and a farmer, it's really important to me to know that my children are growing up on a farm that practices sustainable agriculture, that is part of a local food economy, that has renewable energy systems and a mosaic of many different habitats and places where life is able to grow.
Behind us we have the new apple orchard that we planted with over 60 community volunteers, and the Land Trust helped us rally the volunteers as well.
Now that we've begun working with the Land Trust, we feel like possibilities are opening up to us with starting new ventures like the cidery and expanding our blueberry operation and being able to provide more local food to our community.
But we really feel right now that we're actually surrounded by angels. The support of the Land Trust to private investors and lenders and community members who want to come volunteer. We feel right now like the energy pouring into this piece of land is extremely positive.
really exciting to be able to come back to the community where I grew up and feel like I have meaningful employment and am engaged in shaping the community in a direction that I want to see it go. It'll cook out a lot, the spice will. You want to hold the bag?
Depends on your...
One of the things I like best about this style of farming, sort of small-scale farming in a particular community, is growing the food and making connections for people about where their food comes from. I think people actually eat more vegetables because they want to support me and they want to eat locally, and this is what grows here locally really well. I went to Evergreen and did the organic farm program, learned more about what it would take to be a farmer and run a farm. I felt pretty confident that I wanted to be a farmer, and that's just what I wanted to do. I named this farm Red Dog Farm after my dog, Rupert Dandelion. He always loves farming and loves running around and chasing things. This farmland has been in production for the past 100 years and been a dairy farm for at least the last 30 years while the Browns own the property. It's just a really prime agricultural spot. The quality of the soil, the availability of water, good sunlight, good airflow. Mark Bowman from Shorebank came up with this idea that, well, what about if the land trust was involved, and if the land trust actually bought the land, and then I would sort of have 5 years or so to buy the land from the land trust. And so this would give me a way to sort of get my feet on the ground, get the business going, and they're just all so excited about it. I'm so grateful to them. It's sort of unbelievable and definitely a huge gift.
She has taken on a big chunk of property, putting it back into produce that was, you know, a function that happened on this farm 100 years ago. So there's actually a whole other piece of this property that is actually going back to where it was a long time ago, which is very cool.
And the Browns farm is certainly like the keystone dairy farm. It's a very prominent location. The history of it being a dairy farm for such a long time. There were 2 creameries at that intersection. It'd be great to kind of turn that back around and put it back into production again, and you know, the possibilities are just tremendous.
I think my husband would have been really pleased to keep this as a dairy farm, or a farm anyway.
In order to continue to grow and produce more cheese and potentially other products, we need to have not just another facility, but also a bigger supply of milk.
You know, we want to be able to use all of the milk that's produced locally. When we feel like we need a little bit more beyond that to kind of supplement that, that's where our interest in starting a dairy farm comes from.
And this is usually the most fun room to visit on the tour. We've got close to 5,000 wheels of trailhead in here, in various stages of aging.
We've been really fortunate to be able to have the Land Trust and LandWorks people help move this process along. And this creamery is supporting 3 young families here in town, and we kind of see the potential move to that farm as being really, in a way, sort of building on that tradition of family farming and enabling that tradition to continue.
The smell is no longer there, and the sounds of the cows' chains clanking, and all of those sounds are no longer, and it's quiet and it's sad. This has changed dramatically, and it'll be so exciting to see some new life, bring it back to life, you know, what it was before.
Well, they've got a lovely bunch of people working for that land trust.
Preserving a lot of the agricultural in this community is huge, and 10 years down the road, if there's a family with little kids running around and the 4-H clubs come back and that would just be awesome because it would just be another generation learning from the land, basically.